If your zip goes in jeans, if you take apart the whole construction to replace it, it's very difficult to put together again. So this is a system where you don't have to do that. You need the replacement zip, you need some pins, and I've chosen this needle from my case, which will go through the fabric. I've tested it, it's quite strong. This case, I'm using an old cotton. It's mercerized cotton, and I'll probably use it single because it's very strong, but you could use double sewing thread. Firstly, I've removed all the teeth off the zip. You can see I'm going to illustrate here. I'm going to go very close to the stitch line to get as much off as I can without tearing into any other cloth. I've also opened up the stitch at the bottom so that I can get at the whole zip fly. And up here, I've just opened up where the zip is at the top, either side. Next, I'm going to fold the zip in half. It's very important that this section here of the zip does not overlap onto the teeth. It is a selvage, so it won't undo, but you don't want it getting caught. Now I'm going to tuck that folded zip edge under the waistband and butt the fold right up against the cloth here, the seam. And first of all, I'll pin it and then I'll tack it. I've been able to pin it all the way into the crutch because I've opened it up by removing these stitches here. So I'll make it as flat as I can with the fold and then just tack it. I'm choosing a different tacking colour, obviously. And I have closed the zip at this point because we're working one side at a time. And it'll make it easier to make it flat and easier to control it. I've removed the pins, and so now I've just got the tacking. I'm going to go right down to the base of the zip and secure the thread there. I'm using single thread because my thread is strong. You might want to use double thread. I also don't use a thimble, but if you like them, do use one. The needle is strong and sharp. It isn't a denim needle. You could use one if you wanted. This is just one from my stash. So having secured the thread out of the way, I'm now going to do backstitch a little distance from the zip. Now the backstitch won't be terribly small because there's a lot of material to bend. And I don't think you need to worry about that. Whatever stitching you do will be covered by the fly of the zip. We're going to put in 2 rows to keep it nice and secure. My first row is more or less on the change of diagonal on the zip where the herringbone changes. It makes a very useful line. It's the standard stitching line when machine stitching. So I shall go all the way up to the end, secure. At the top here, I'm going to pull back the waistband a little bit and secure my stitch discreetly under there. So 1, 2, and 3. Then go back to the bottom again here, secure the thread again, and you can see that the zip has slightly moved away from the stitching line here, and that just happens. It's what we're going to do though is secure it as tightly as we can next to it again. So there we are. We're going to now go on the fold and do a back stitch. And as I say, it's not as neat as machine sewing, but I've machine sewed quite a lot of zips and they're a hassle because the whole fly deconstructs. So this is an infinitely easier way of doing it and quicker in the end. By the time you've had everything fall apart, try and machine it back nicely. So you do the same, go all the way to the end and finish up. The zip is nice and secure. It's stitched well on this side. Now we need to do the fly closure. I've closed the zip and we're going to get the fit right. So close the button and feeling underneath I want to place the zip under the fly and pin it, not too close to the zip teeth, otherwise it'd be difficult to undo. So I'll show you what I've done there. Open it up, undo. There we are. It's pinned into position and you can see it's moved back slightly from the other tape, but I'm going to leave it in this instance because we're going to sew partly on that tape. It prevents us going through the 2 layers of cloth on the denim. I've reached for a thimble at this point. I've secured my thread right down at the bottom. I'm doing a back stitch along one of the herringbone lines. It doesn't have to be close to the teeth. It shouldn't be quite so close to the teeth. 1 line of back stitch should suffice here, but what you don't want to do is go through both layers of cloth. So you keep your fingers at the back so that if you feel the needle go through too far, then you pull it back on itself. I'll go all the way to the end and secure it. When I get to the end, I'm going to make sure that the seam allowance is tucked under the waistband, seam allowance on the zip that is, and secure my thread, trim. Let's have a look and see how this fits. So zip it up and that's our new zip done. Can you see there's no stitching catching here? The problem with trouser production is that the zip is actually put on as part of the production and these top stitches secure the fly down, but the zip stitching is here. That's why hand stitching is very good, because it obscures it. One of the last jobs is to put in that secure stitch at the bottom of the fly again. It means that the zip has a tension to pull against and it stops the placket from flying open. So we just put in some overstitching here, just 1 big stitch, and I'm doing it with double thread here, just so that it makes it nice and secure. 1, just do a few there. Then we need to restitch the top flies. So again, open up the jeans, make sure that the zip is well secured and do stitching. Now this can be quite hard, so it's quite possible that you need to take your needle front to back and come up through all those different layers of cloth. It very rarely makes a difference how neat your stitching is here, on jeans especially. So long as it's secure, not going to pull out, then anything goes really. So I'm just doing those final stitches. On this side I tend to work on the front because the stitches, you need to do more single stitches to replace the waistband. And that should be jeans, zips replaced for the cost of the zip. That's pretty good.